Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this cabinet meeting held 1st of December. First of all, the item on the agenda is apologies, and we have a full house. Also take the opportunity to welcome Castor Boyle to her first formal cabinet meeting. The second item on the agenda is the minutes of the 3rd November. Were there any questions or points to raise on the minutes, please? If not, I will propose they are accepted, seconded by Councillor Shires, and presume all in favour. Yeah, thank you. We have no public questions or statements or items of urgent business. Therefore, that takes us to item 5, declarations of interest. Go ahead, Councillor Ringer.
Thank you very much. With respect to item 14, I am a member of Bodham Parish Council, and there is a proposal for a PSPO in Bodham. I believe I can still participate and vote on the advice of the monitoring officer.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. Item 6 is members' questions. Are there any questions at this point in time? No. Okay. Item 7 is overview and scrutiny committee recommendations. Councillor Holiday.
Thank you, Chair. As written here, we recommended from our meeting on the 12th the 2 items: car parking fees and charges, and we were quite clear that we wanted the inflation-based increase to be the favoured choice, and no increase to standard town car parks, and to be mindful of the inconvenience for cash holders of the use of small change, which is what this will cause. I'd also like to mention that we had a request from a councillor following the petition regarding the Pretty Corner Woods, and he felt that it had highlighted some issues regarding engagement between the local community and the countryside team, and proposed a resolution that was passed, which was for the countryside team to proactively communicate with the public in a timely fashion regarding the way in which NNDC sites are managed, why they are managed in certain ways, and what plans are in place when upcoming works on those sites are likely to cause disruption or significant change going forward. And we also recommended the fees and charges as opposed to the car parking fees and charges. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, can you just say that last one again? You recommended the.
We also had an agenda item concerning fees and charges,
Yeah,
which I don't think is listed here, in addition to the car as a separate item to car parking fees, and we resolved to recommend it as on the agenda. Then, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you accepted. Then thank you. Right. Well, thank you for your time coming to report that to us. Then, so I think we can note that and move forward to item 8, which is reporting progress on implementing the corporate plan and the action plan 25-26 and Q2 report. So, thank you. First of all, to all officers for the production of the report, and just as a quick flick through. So, obviously, in terms of item 1. There you've got the local plan, which is of course otherwise on the agenda today after, well, the culmination of much effort. Item 2 is in respect of part 2 reports went to the last committee round. Turning to point 9 and the visits and discussion on health provision, which occurred as stated, which was useful, and we await a follow-up discussion. The following point 10, construction has of course started on that particular project, and which has been secured, being led by district council officers in this administration. So that's obviously a significant bit of work for us in the 2 years ahead. And item 11, work towards that is commencing ahead of tangible efforts in Fakenham as well, in terms of the 3G pitch towards eventual delivery. Item 12, we're also underway at Holt Country Park 2 with the outdoor learning centre. So that's a really fantastic achievement to get to this point in terms of securing the funding Look forward to going have a look at that soon. Item 13, housing and homelessness data has been distributed to parishes, and you should have all been copied in fact, to that email. Please flag it if you've missed that for any reason. And it's obviously important that you will continue to advocate for housing in this district and in your own wards. And 14, we have another annual arrangement on the second homes premium pending, mirroring the current year's arrangements, and the related paper comes to that later. Item 18 in respect of Invest North Norfolk and and the publication. So just to sort of flag that again, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Lots of information coming there that's useful for businesses in our wards. Item 19, further significant discussions externally supported in respect of the Bacton Energy Hub, which is very appreciable. And we're seeing some quite significant updates on there. I think every report at the moment. Item 21 in respect of banking hubs, so now open obviously at Holt, and in due course one will open at Cromer, with progress towards North Walsham as well. So I think it's quite a significant the movement there we've seen over the last year, which is good. Item 23, I just wanted to highlight the achievements around SPF. Of course, this wasn't reflected in the most recent government budget. They're replacing it with something else that is going to the strategic mayors, and it unfortunately looks like it's quite focused on metropolitan areas, concerned obviously about the loss of funding from rural areas, particularly that was an EU funding replacement, as it were. So obviously reflecting on last week's budget announcements, that isn't something that's continuing. And I suppose just to finish by highlighting the local government reorganisation consultation is also live. Any questions? No? Okay. Item 9 then is car park fees and charges. Councillor Shires.
Thank you. I just want to open by thanking the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their very thorough scrutiny of this paper. Actually, it was quite a large conversation, and I think it's really important that we continue to work in partnership, not only in this year but in the coming years of whatever's coming down the track. So, in summary, last year we had put car parking charges up and season ticket charges up, with the option to come back this year and review again, particularly because the season ticket charges, the committee had opted for a stepped review of those, so to not just give such a big increase in 1 year, it wanted to be spread out over 2 years. Car parking charges will not go up in our standard car parks, so our inland market towns. That is for 2 reasons. One, we know that our high streets inland struggle. Specifically, there's a huge impact, economic impact, cost of living crisis and such. So we want to really make sure that our inland towns are heavily supported, but also they'd have been unfairly disadvantaged by rounding up when it came to the 3.8%. And whilst last year we were a little bit bolder in the way that we put our car parking fees up, this year it wouldn't have been felt to have been necessary, specifically when we have local residents who are struggling with the day-to-day costs of living. So that's the reason for where we are. There was a lot of conversation about the 5p, and I think in some ways it just shows how important every penny is to people, but it was a very, very thorough conversation, and it was felt that if we were going to increase beyond 5p, it would have been about 5.8% overall, and that was quite unfair, and that would have impacted standard car parks too. but also it would have unfairly disadvantaged those who are paying by card or by the app because they would have seen an increase overall. So I'm hoping we found a middle ground there. With season ticket charges, I had anticipated that season tickets would go up much more this year because of the view to do a stepped increase, but the committee were completely satisfied to run with the CPI increase of 3.8%. So I'll present this paper to the committee and to the committee to the cabinet, and if we have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Could you just highlight which recommendations you're proposing?
Yeah, sorry, absolutely. So option 1, which is no increase to standard car parking up to and including the 24-hour tariff, but increasing car parking fees for resort and coastal car parks in line with CPI inflation of 3.8%. And then, so that's option 1 for car parking charges, then option 6 for season ticket charges, which is increase season ticket fees by 3.8%.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Well, subject to any questions, I'm happy to second the recommendation. Okay, were there any points anyone wants to raise around the room? Okay. In that case, can we take a vote of all those in favour of accepting the recommendations, please? That's unanimous. 2 of our cabinet members having a fine. Okay. Item 10 then is fees and charges. Back to yourself, Mr. Shires.
Thank you. This is an annual paper where we review all the fees and charges that are issued by the councils. Some of these fees and charges, we have the ability to set the fee. Others are set by government, and on the whole, it's on a basis of cost recovery. I did want to particularly highlight, and if the cabinet member that covers licensing doesn't mind, I will hand over to him shortly, that there was a lot of work done by the licensing team to ensure that it is true cost recovery, rather than a year-on-year increase. And I think there's some good news for some of our taxi licence holders in that review. But I'll pass over to Councillor Ringer just to update the cabinet on that.
Thank you, Councillor Shires. Yeah, really comprehensive piece of work actually been undertaken in our licensing team. So I'd just like to thank officers for their hard work as part of that. This is the first benchmarking exercise I think that's been undertaken for a number of years now. So as you say, it's a cost recovery basis. This isn't something that we can go along and start making money from. And as part of that process, there's some identified some savings. So you're right to highlight taxes in particular. I think that there's a welcome reduction in their licensing fees this year. Going forward, the mechanism for which these charges will change will be a little bit more frequent than they have been up to now, but they will reflect the work that the licensing team are doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly appreciate all of the work that's been done to lead to this point in time where it's quite a comprehensive review of fees and charges based on actual demand to the organisation, etc. So I presume then that's proposed and seconded by yourself, Councillor Ringer. Subject to any questions or points around the room. If not, then can we take a vote of all of those in favour, please? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Item 11 is council tax discounts and premiums determination. Councillor Shires, yourself again.
Thank you. I just want to pass my thanks on to the team for putting the paper together. There is a mention here of the second homes council tax premium. So I just wanted to highlight, obviously, Councillor Adams gave us an introduction into that before. We are currently quite far into negotiations on council tax with the view to reach the same negotiation that we had last year, as in the proportion that comes back to the district from the county council. So we have included it in here, and it's obviously on the basis of whether or not that is as successful as we believe it's going to be. There have been a few reviews and tweaks in here, everything set out in the paper, but I really just wanted to highlight, just touching back on the second homes, that obviously it was a new thing for us to do. And obviously our second homeowners will have had some conversation with us and many cabinet members about the charge. But the revenues team at this council have successfully defended a second homes premium challenge at the valuation tribunal. And I think it's right and proper that I highlight it here. So that confirms that the exception classes G and H, which are in Appendix C, will only apply for 12 months when the property was first marketed, even if this date was before the existence of the legislation enabling the freemium. So it was the first case of this kind to be heard in England, and we won as a council. So we've added text to the Appendix C, so it's clear when other customers consider an appeal for this reason, they fully understand our position and obviously the national position on that. But it just shows the success in our team leading the way, and this positive decision will help other councils who are facing similar appeals, which will provide more certainty around the second homes revenue for us and other councils who have implemented the charge as well. So a huge thanks for the team for the work that they did on that. But I propose the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Shines. Were there any questions or points which should be raised? Councillor Cushing, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I couldn't quite actually hear all of Councillor Shah's explanation, but if I just ask a question on the second homes premium. Is the 35% higher than we were anticipating, and is the amount of income that we've accrued from second homes premiums in line with what we were expecting?
So the initial estimation was small c conservative, just to make sure that we weren't over-egging our position in that. But it's my understanding that currently we've achieved far more than we had believed, and that will come forward when we've got final figures on that.
And figures currently indicate the reduction in overall second homes numbers is quite modest. But we'll have a look at that in due course as well.
On that point, I mean, is there a paper or any sort of report coming through to Cabinet or full council looking at the impact of second home premiums?
I don't think it'll come to full council, but we'll talk about it later on today, and I'll get back to you on that. If nothing else, we can certainly hold a discussion of some form, so members around the council are informed about the current position in terms of numbers and everything. So we'll yeah, we're discussing it later on today, in fact. So we'll certainly get back to you on that. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone else in the room? No. If not, is there someone to second the recommendation? Councillor Toy, and all of those in favour, please. Yeah, that is unanimous. Item 12 then is the adoption of the North Norfolk Local Plan 2024 to 2040. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. We have a fairly short agenda report here in front of us. It's only, I think, 15 pages in total, if you ignore the appendices. These will be some of the most important 15 pages we've ever considered at this council, and also the previous council administration as well. This begins to draw down the curtain on the local plan process if we proceed and we refer it through to full council on the 17th of December. Anyone that's looked at the chart on page 106 will see that the process started in August 2015. So it's been over a 10-year journey through several planning policy working parties, cabinets, even full council, examination by the inspector twice, and 3, perhaps 4 public consultations. So I don't think we can for a minute assume that this hasn't been through a pretty comprehensive sieving process throughout its life so far. I just want to thank the acting planning policy manager who is in the room for his work and the work of his team, and also the work of his predecessor for many of those 10 years in bringing the process to where we are currently. I also want to thank members. Just a quick recap down memory lane, who in April 23, apart from I think one member who abstained, voted unanimously to refer this plan, albeit slightly modified now, thanks to the inspector tweaking it, as it were, to make it comply with the new government's policy. It was voted through unanimously to refer to the inspector for inspection back in April 2023. And I think in my experience in Cabinet and on this council, I don't think we've had too many instances where that has occurred. Why do we need it? Just a few words on that. Without an up-to-date local plan, we would have less control. We would also have, after the 1st of January, to start a new plan from, well, pretty much from scratch, with all the attendant expense that would incur for this council, and lurching towards local government reform and various alterations to the planning process that, for example, the combined mayor will bring into play as from next May, following the mayoral elections, on a spatial strategy and other matters, infrastructure and economic development planning. We would also lose our current housing delivery test, which stands at 557 dwellings per year for the 15-year plan period through to 2040. That would immediately increase to 932 dwellings per annum. We will need additional sites to achieve that target, and we will have no 5-year land supply, and our policies in this plan would be irrelevant to that process, and we would be open to speculative developers coming in and perhaps not giving us what we would prefer. We know that this policy, this plan, beg your pardon, is not perfect. I don't think there's a local plan in the country that is perfect. And we have to accept that. There will be challenges in certain parts of the district, given the volume of development, particularly in our market towns. But we have to face reality that the government has got a driven agenda to develop 1.5 million homes in the lifetime of this Parliament, and we are going to be under significant pressure to meet that demand. There's just 3 issues that I just want to mention before closing. If we don't have a local plan, we lose the neighbourhood planning conformity process, because neighbourhood plans have to conform with our planning policy. If we haven't got a local plan, it puts them at risk and in jeopardy. We have, as I've mentioned, the local government reform challenge potentially to altering our planning regime. And of course, if we start all over again, I am going to get some really black looks from the finance portfolio holder as I ask her to come up with sufficient resources, financial and otherwise, to reinvent the wheel when it's far simpler to propose the recommendations in this agenda report, and I so do. I'm quite happy to hand over to the planning policy manager to deal with any questions about the recommendations or anything more technical, which is not above his pay grade, but it's way above mine.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. First of all, likewise, I also wanted to recognise the significant achievement of officers, and both past and present, as you rightly say, towards achieving this, towards reaching this point in time a decade of work here and a little bit more. So a significant achievement in doing that. And secondly, also those that contributed towards the governance and decisions, both in terms of councillors, but also members of the public, and all sorts of small organisations concerned with different issues, and perhaps others that have contributed in various ways. I also have to be fair to residents, and I think you alluded to it. You know, you won't have a perfect plan. It just doesn't happen with this sort of scale, and this is obviously nothing unusual in a national context in terms of planning the local plan process, and of course what's being asked of us by the government in terms of overall housing delivery. So you know, I had to say that of course there are sites across the district that will make some of us, both as local members, but certainly residents, uncomfortable. But these, of course, have been proposed by landowners legitimately and lawfully in the much earlier call for sites for ultimate consideration in the process, but ultimately by the planning inspector as well. And you know, I have a site in or at least adjacent to my own ward that I was disappointed that the planning inspector felt was appropriate despite potential alternatives, and I do think that there will be issues there. However, that isn't addressed by the local plan process. A planning application will come at a later date. So I've got to recognise, from my point of view, that's the case. And what would be if we refused the local plan now, if we didn't agree to it? Well, first of all, of course, as Councillor Brown has said, speculative development, uncontrollable to a certain extent. And I think it's also fair to say it would be the last chance we would have to have a figure of housing delivery of this scale. If we were to not approve the local plan now, that figure would go up by a significant margin. It's certainly over a third. It's almost double, isn't it? In fact. So that could potentially be the impact of not having a local plan, potentially having to facilitate, work towards double the number of housing and houses, individual properties across the district over of course a long period of time, but that would mean far more sites coming forward, and many of those would make us even more uncomfortable than some of those within the proposed local plan now. But of course, these issues will be addressed through planning applications. None of these sites have planning permission as a result of the adoption. So I think I've got Councillor Toy who wants to speak next, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Shires.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, actually, Councillor Brown, after I indicated to you, carried on and covered many of the points I wanted to make about the benefits of having the plan. You mentioned about the challenges that will bring to individuals, but without a plan, there would be even greater challenges. So I'm not going to labour any of those points that have all clearly already been said, but I'm happy to second the recommendations as laid out. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Councillor Shires.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brown. I know that you have been very, very dedicated to this process. And I think that when we look at planning as a whole, there are many layers to planning, and residents don't quite have enough time or enough chance to understand all the layers. And I'm thinking particularly with NW16, and that's what I'm just going to speak on briefly today. So North Walsham of which a North Walsham member is getting a lot of houses, which is fantastic for our local community. We have a need. We have a lot of young families who need homes, and for me, that's the most exciting part of this. We'll be building on what we have as a community, notwithstanding the pressures already on healthcare, which is not going to be improved by more homes, but we do need the NHS to really step up when we're looking at larger medical practice and such. So there's multi-strands to this, but the land at the end of Munsley Road, which is affectionately known as NW16, is caused the largest issue in the town for a number of reasons. One, it was a late addition to the plan, but it was a late addition to the plan that at first was presented by a developer as a done deal, really. So, and that was the biggest flag for our community. They presented an idea of what it could look like, and for the community, that feels like it's a planning application, and it feels like that is the action that's been taken, which then conflates what's happening with the local plan, which then conflates with the actual planning application, which has been brought forward subsequently. So I think there's going to be a little bit of exhaustion within communities where they're going to run out of steam putting their views forward. And I think that's the bit that we really need to work on, local members particularly, of making sure that our communities know when is the opportune moment to have feedback. And that's the one thing that I fear. So the local plan designates an area with some instruction on how that area would be deemed as being appropriate for housing. And if we look at NW16, it's to do with the road that comes off, some call it bypass, some call it Lingate Road, to reduce the impact on Munsley Road. So that's what the local plan says. And then the local plan sets out the rule set by which a development can happen and what it should look like. That's what the local plan is here to do, is to protect North Norfolk and the way that it looks and feels as an area, and protect individual communities. That's what the local plan is designed to do. And the planning applications are very, very separate. And we need to make sure that local communities understand the difference there. I think it's quite hard when people hear planning, because planning is all under one massive hat. And I think if our planning officers had the full control of everything, I think we would be seeing a very different plan here in terms of housing numbers in particular, of which I know has been a pressure on the team when the government changed the rules. So whilst I understand that my communities may not fully understand the impact of approving the local plan today, I can do so in a supportive way, purely because I understand what the intent is behind the local plan, and that we need to just make sure that when planning applications come through, that we do stand up for what our community wants and needs through Section 106, through improved roads, and through making sure that development is fit for our communities. That isn't what the local plan is today. So I know Councillor Brown has been very open to my conversation with him about NW16, and for the reason of understanding what the local plan is there to do, which is in the majority, meet the government's need but protect our community. I'm really happy to support it today. But for my communities, it's all about the detail of when the planning applications come through.
Great. Okay, well, yeah, certainly, and I also align with everything you've said there. You obviously got the concerns in respect of NW16. I've got concerns in respect of land west of Clifton Park and Cromer. Different scale, different developments, not comparable for many reasons. But as you say, in the context here around the approval of the local plan, we've got to take a greater or a world view, I suppose, in terms of this is a plan for the entirety of the district, and the impact of not having that in place could be very, very challenging in terms of uncontrolled levels of development at a much higher volume. Councillor Fisher, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the end of the Herculean task. I make one comment and a question then for Councillor Brown, if I may. I mean, having numbers in a report saying what we're going to build is one thing, getting them built is another all entirely. And if I look at the Fakenham urban extension, I think when that was first moved, it has been lost in the mists of time, as far as I can work out. I mean, it's been going on so long, and we still haven't, not as far as I'm aware, close to getting a reserved MACAS application in for the site east of Watermore Lane. I do note, looking on page 140, it looks like the numbers for the site, the second phase, have increased very slightly by about 70 houses, if I remember. Anyway, just to say how that progresses. The question I have really, Councillor Brown, is I recall about a year ago, the government announced that it had a plan for 980 houses in North Norfolk, which I think all of us will agree is an entirely ludicrous figure. What risk is there that the government will come back and impose that figure as opposed to the one that we actually have for an annual target in the new local plan?
Yep, thank you very much, Councillor Cushing, for your question. A massive risk. At the moment, because we were proactive and submitted our draft plan when we did, when many of the local authorities were pausing theirs because of prospective government changes, we are now proceeding under what the government called transitional arrangements. So that means that our housing delivery test can follow the national planning policy framework of the previous government, of the Conservative government, and not the new national planning policy framework of December 2024 of the current government. If this plan isn't adopted, we have to start a plan straight away, a new plan, then the housing delivery test will require us to deliver 932, as opposed to what we have in front of us in this report, 557. So that's per year for the 15-year plan period. So there's do the maths, there's a significant uplift. And that's not negotiable. That's imposed on us straight away. We've managed to gain an advantage for this authority by proceeding under the transitional arrangements that I referred to earlier, to manage better the delivery of houses in sustainable locations and in the main preferred locations across the district. And without this plan, we would simply lose that control altogether.
Yeah, thank you. I think I've got Councillor Holiday. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I wanted to thank the planning policy team because their fantastic work that they've done on this, which is absolutely brilliant. Secondly, I'd like to say that the direction of travel is obviously best for the district, but thirdly, there are residents who will not be happy with elements, much like you two have referred to. And I don't think we should ignore the fact that elements of this will be counter to popular opinion.
Certainly.
And I have total sympathy with them. Thank you.
Yeah. And ultimately, though, it's not something that we could, I suppose, control as local members, because there's the process in terms of the call for sites. That's a roll of the dice in a sense, isn't it, in terms of what then comes back from willing landowners, available land, etc. But of course, there's the planning process as well. Presuming, and not every site obviously comes forward as a planning application, that's obviously possible. Then the matters of concern need to obviously be addressed there. It's a process that is liable to cause some confusion to residents, and you generally aren't. You could probably go your entire life without being involved in the planning process. Of course, sometimes you're forced to do so if there's a significant development nearby, and you have to go through that learning curve. And everyone in the room has had to do that as local councillors, but of course, many of our residents wouldn't have had to do that, quite possibly. So I think really it's our role to try and encourage members of the public to get engaged, get involved when the consultation processes for those individual applications launches. launch, or commence, I should say. And, over of course, a long period of time. I think I've got Councillor Toy.
Yeah, thank you for letting me come back, Mr. Chairman. I think what we have to try and remember with some of this is like LGR, the government makes decisions and we have to find the best way out of that. We've had to do a local plan for really good reasons that has kept us as protected as we can be, and we've developed a set of policies, and we need to make sure that those difficult ones that are there, that have been even more if we hadn't had a plan, that we actually make the most of that opportunity, as Councillor Shah has said, that they actually support community teams or whatever we can get out of it to make the best of it. But we will be facing those challenges with many things that we do, not just in planning. And I think by having the policies in place and using them to deliver the best outcomes that we can is what we must do.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. I think certainly if the government were to ask us for a significant uplift in the volume of houses being constructed, there would be all sorts of other implications in terms of the capacity of the construction industry, both locally and nationally, which I think we will get to anyway. You know, I do have skepticism about the government achieving the housing numbers that they have envisaged for that reason, in terms of material and labour capacity in the construction industry. But for an area like North Norfolk and others, you've got issues such as utility capacity, electricity. Obviously, the thing you hear most frequently, I would say now, from residents is about healthcare provisions, around GP hospital appointments, etc., and whether there's the capacity to deal with that. And ultimately, those are tasks for the government to try and deal with as well. And so there are implications if on themselves if they put more pressure on us, and hopefully that's understood. I hope it is. I'm not always convinced it is. But all sorts of complexities here, certainly. You want to come back, Councillor Brown? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just very briefly, just following on from my answer to Councillor Cushing, the paragraph to look at is 5.3 on page 113, which makes it quite clear. The officer has very helpfully stated there what the consequences are on the housing numbers if we don't proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just think it's good that we get some of this stuff out there for residents to understand. There was an announcement that I don't know how many saw from government in the recent stuff that's been going on, but the government is committed to opening 250 neighbourhood health centres. So again, it's a moving field. That's why through a plan and knowing what's going on, we can try and bring that together to get the best result for our residents.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also ties in with other areas of our action plan at the moment, and certainly the work in respect to LGR and evolution, but certainly we're expecting these designated neighbourhoods of 50,000-60,000 roughly, with provisions potentially under one roof, but that's what it will look like. But that's obviously something we're keen to understand in the context here. I suppose I should also mention something we haven't done. Of course, this isn't just about housing. It clearly dominates the agenda, but the local plan is obviously far more than that in terms of economic, social policies and environmental heritage, environment, etc. So it's all in there for residents and future councillors to get their head round over many future years to come in council terms anyway. Okay. Were there any other points you wanted to raise? If not, then it's been proposed by Councillor Brown and seconded by Councillor Toy. We accept the recommendations, and can I take a vote of all of those in favour? Thank you. That is unanimous. Landscape management plan 2025 to 2030. And Councillor Bathwaite, go ahead.
Yes, just can I ask us to endorse the draft Norfolk Coast and National Landscape Management Plan for 25 to 30? This has been a collaborative and worthwhile consultation in as much as it is taken on board and fitted in with our recommendations, very much so it would fit in with the previous agenda item. The landscape protects the public access to amenity and retains the extraordinary beauty of our coast. And I am fortunate that Officer Batchelor is behind me, who can answer any questions regarding this process. And I thank Officer Batchelor very much for her support in this process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Second, your thanks as well for our involvement in this plan. So can I ask, are there any questions or points? Councillor Holiday? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Officer Batchelor for her involvement with this. I have reservations about the landscape management plan, and I hope that people will contribute to the public consultation. I think the targets aren't smart, most of them subjective. The monitoring is weak, for example, for chalk streams, and the planning consultations. Actually, the proof of the pudding is the state of the Norfolk Coast landscape report, which I think there are quite a high percentage of SSSIs, some of which are in our district, which are in poor condition. The chalk streams are either all moderate or low in condition. And so I think we need to take quite a hard look at that, how the AONB, ex-AONB is being managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Is there anything you want to say to come back?
Sorry, I didn't catch all of that. My hearing isn't as good as it should be. But I think you were mainly supporting, and I assure you that they are smart targets, and those targets are in the interests of us all. Sorry, yes, please come back.
19% of the targets are smart, actually, in the landscape management plan, and the rest are subjective. And I wasn't supporting it, actually, and I'm rather worried by the state of the NCNL report and the evidence that's prevented. I think it's been very good that they've collated the evidence, but the fact that we've got SSSIs in poor condition, we've got rivers in poor condition, and very light pollution, those sorts of things that we treasure. I think there's some concerning items there. Thank you.
Unfortunately, National Landscape, the old ANOB in old money, has limited powers. Though it is a protected landscape, it has no planning. The planning input is only there, is not statutory. It supports dark skies. It tries to achieve its aims mainly through public negotiation rather than statutory powers. And as such, we cannot expect too much from it. I wish the powers were stronger. I think in the future, those powers, depending on who is elected mayor in the future, future mayor will have powers that can and hopefully will strengthen the arm of the national landscapes in becoming a statutory consultee to any planning. I take on board exactly what you say, and I think it is a frustration of many of us that we cannot affect as much as we would like. As I say, the asset of our national coastal landscape is nationally important and is part of North Norfolk's great contribution to this country. And I don't know if Officer Batchelor would like to comment on any of the things she's heard so far.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. The production of the management plan is a statutory duty to be reviewed every 5 years, which is why this is coming about now. It's also translated into our local plan in one of our environmental policies that development has to take note and adhere to the objectives within the management plan. So that's how it's embedded into our local planning policy. Just to make a point on the state of the Norfolk Coast Landscape Report that accompanies this management plan. It's the first time really there's been some hard evidence on the state of the landscape. In previous management plans, there have been condition assessments, but they haven't really been quantified in a factual ways, which they are now. This State of the Landscape Report, I think it's got some errors in it and some gaps in it, but I think it's a good start because what they're doing is they're working on stats and evidence from partnership bodies. For example, Natural England have a duty to assess all the sites of special scientific interest and do a condition assessment, and that's been incorporated into this National Landscape Report management plan. So I think now with more tangible statistics, it's then going to be easier to do proper performance indicators and then to monitor in a much more evidential way what is the state of the landscape in the future, and in terms of actually drilling down on areas that need improvements, such as our chalk streams in our area and some of our sites of special scientific interest. So I think it's a way of actually highlighting areas that really do need attention. And I do want to focus this in our response, and that the particular areas within our district get prioritised in the action plans. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
I would just add that the land to the east isn't given as much weight as I would like as well, and I think that will be added in the contribution we make.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think any contribution in terms of the consultation process is valuable, of course, from across the district, and certainly with my way to what Councillor Hodley said earlier in terms of anything any of us can do to encourage responses, and I certainly identify the concerns that are born out of the real state of play in terms of the issues facing these assets. But of course, as Officer Batchelor said, this probably does give us the opportunity to expect more in terms of the future custodianship and maintenance and improvement of these sites. Okay, so we will therefore take the recommendation proposed to endorse the response. Does anyone want to second that? Yeah, okay, Councillor Varley, and taking a vote of all of those in favour, please. Thank you. That's unanimous. Great. Item 14 is the modified and additional beaches and inland public space protection orders for dog control. Councillor Ringham.
Thank you very much. Yes, some of you will recall we went through a process of reviewing our PSPOs earlier this year, and as part of that consultation, a couple of things came forward where there were some perhaps additions or modifications that we might want to make, and so we endeavoured to do that this autumn. A small number of changes here. We've got 3 playgrounds which have come forward. A modification in Fakenham at the churchyard, which has previously been dogs have been prohibited, but that is going to change. That are going to be relaxed to dogs will be permitted on leads. East Runton is to be in compliance with the blue flag beach status, and in Munsley the modification is because the steps down to the beach were within the new steps were within a dog prohibition area. So you had to go through it to get to the no dogs bit. So we've modified that so that you can get there. So fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. But I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to propose that.
Well, I just wanted to praise the work of relevant officers in getting to this point in time where obviously we've seen modifications that I think were largely, if not entirely, steered really by residents, highlighting concerns, issues. Things change over the course of time, of course, with new sites becoming part of the public realm, or perhaps a change in behaviours and activities, leading to some restrictions becoming a necessary consideration, which is obviously what's happened here. And as you've highlighted, you know, things revert back sometimes to lesser restrictions in terms of taking them based on the issues that are being observed. So I'm very much grateful as well to residents that have got in touch with us in probably various ways throughout the course of a long period of time in terms of highlighting dog fouling issues and other dog control issues, and of course culminating in the consultation process for this. So yeah, good bit of work overall. Presume that's proposed. And is there any other comments? That seconded by Councillor Toy. And also, did you want to ask a question? We'll take a.
I just wanted to thank the officers actually for their sterling work again on this, and Salt House will be pleased with the restriction on the playing fields. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Just before we take the vote, any other questions? No? Okay, so can we take a vote of all of those? Was that a question? No, a vote of all of those in favour. Thank you, Liz. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. That's unanimous. Item 15 is the annual update regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000. Councillor Ringer.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is our, we're required to review our policy for the use of powers under the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act annually. So this paper just serves to do that. There are some modifications that have come about just to keep pace with statutory change. And I'm sure if there's any questions, Officer Hems will be prepared to take them.
Yeah, fantastic.
Otherwise, I propose that.
Yeah, is this just a note? Sorry, I cannot remember the recommendation in this one. Yeah, so is there a need to take a vote? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so are there any questions in respect to this? Obviously, this is, you know, with statutory report, we have to do it, but there's not been any use of the, obviously, it's something of a curiosity, I'm sure. But those of you who've been around a few years have seen this quite a few times. So happy to note then. That's okay. Okay, thank you all. And thank you, officers. Item 16 and 17 are obviously exclusion of press and public private business. We have neither, therefore the meeting is closed, and